This is the Installer Guy, Kicking It With News, Episode 3. I'm going to talk about how I do a podcast and the technology involved with the elderly and the young. So, how to do a podcast? Let me think. It is a lot of work. It's not easy. It takes time, effort, editing, re-editing, practice, timing, pitch, no mistakes, work, data collecting, so forth and so forth. But over time, when you're finished, the result is excellent because it's what you want. Now, first of all, I'm going in uncharted territory doing a podcast because I'm going on a limb to share my views and thoughts and to get a fresh perspective from my audience by basically collecting data that is either negative, positive, or even neutral through email, call-in, or comments on my podcast. This is a risk by me taking to the internet highway and broadcasting in a public forum to update, explain, and express news. It is also my job to keep my existing loyal followers captivated by engaging in activity that helps deepen their loyalty and to attract new followers with valuable and deep content and through word of mouth from my existing followers on my podcast. Now, when you make a podcast, you must have a little bit of ammunition ready for it, and that way you can handle the positive and the negative. And when I say positive and negative, I'm talking about the working pros, ways to improve, and the acceptable cons, taking my lumps. Now, let's get the workable cons out the way because that is what perfects your podcast channel. Being able to express my feelings about important information that you feel passionate about, something that you just feel like it's in your gut instinct and that, you know what, this is what I crave and I want to talk about. But you also have to look at both sides, the yin and the yang, because there's always two sides to the story. However, I have to remember that this is my podcast channel and I'm the only one doing all the legwork to make it work. So it succeeds, I succeed. I have to be able to articulate well and explain myself properly to all those that are listening. Plus, I have to understand that my audience is coming from all walks of life. When I say all walks of life, I'm talking about middle class, upper class, and lower class. I have to have precise facts that break down exactly what I'm talking about. So when I give you information, it's factual. I researched it. I have the data to show you that it's been performed. I have to make sure my equipment is working properly and that I have all the tools to broadcast a perfect broadcast or podcast, such as breathing in the mic. I ain't gonna be doing that. Echoes in the background. Hello, hello, hello. Lowering the music in the background to help my channel. And even focusing on the subject at hand, not going off script or off subject. I need to inject more humor in my podcast because that's what I'm all about. Acting silly, making jokes, icebreakers as you call them. When someone's having a bad day, I want to be able to give them a reason to laugh. I want to be able to bring that energy to the audience. I will welcome all feedback to make my podcast better and more enjoyable for all. That's through email, comments on chat, while broadcasting live, and even call-ins during episode segments where I will take incoming calls. The subject matter I talk about will be all forms of news. And when I say all forms, I'm talking about social news, technology news, entertainment news, political news, and sports news. First of all, one, I'm a diehard Detroit fan. All Detroit teams I follow. I may not approve of some of the decisions that they make when it comes to recruiting talent, but I am a diehard fan. Political news. I'll tell you right now, I'm a Democrat. I'm all about. I loved when Obama made office, and I was sad to see him go. Let's see what else. Oh, entertainment news. Well, most of my entertainment news will be about movies that have came out or are coming out, or movies that I've seen that maybe I can give you some input on the news about that particular movie. Technology news. Hey, I'm a technology nut, so I'll give you all the news I can give you. Social news. When I talk about social news, I'm talking about things like not what's going on with J-Lo or anything like that. I'm talking about as far as things that actually impact society as far as socially. Okay? Now, acceptable cons, that's taking my lumps. I have to have thick skin and be able to handle criticism. I have to have acknowledgement that everyone has their own opinion on subject matter that I talk about. I need to relax because when I am speaking, I am clearly nervous at times. So my voice changes a little. The more comfortable I get, for some reason, the more deeper it gets. I don't know why. I can't explain it. And if I was sick, my voice would sound like Barry White. Yes, it's true. When I have a sore throat, I sound like Barry White. All right. I will do what I want, when I want, where I want, within the confines of a public podcast. And why? Because I can. Don't get it twisted now. Everyone has an opinion, and I value everyone's opinion. So, with that being said, the first thing I had, someone asked me a question about the name, the installer guy, kicking it with news. The installer guy portion is what they had the question on. I believe I said this in my first podcast, but I'll reiterate that the name is simple. I was a cable technician that installed cable, internet, and home phone in people's dwelling. Their home, their domicile. I have written program code in the past, and I don't do that anymore. I have worked on all types of computers and audio and video equipment, and I've built computers from the ground up, and I've tore them down. I used to install TVs in homes on the walls, and I used to install software to different computers and other hardware in people's homes and businesses. I have friends that have worked with me, and they all can vouch for me. But I digress. I want to talk about technology with the elderly and technology with the children and how they actually can help one another. Now, the research that I found this information from is from a company called Pew Research Center. They actually gave me the information that I needed to know about technology with seniors and elderly and technology with children. Now, when I bring that up, I'm talking about the fact that technology right now is a way of life. It works hand in hand with my degree, which is in mathematics. Math is power, but technology is what helps the math work. Because in order to make the technology work properly, you must use math calculations to make that work. Now, there are different generations, preferably 8 generations I want to talk about that actually coincide with this. And unfortunately, the generations that missed out are long and gone, but I still want to reiterate those. And that first generation is the lost generation. From 1883 to 1900, the generation that reached maturity level during and just after World War I. A high portion of those people were men who were killed during those years. Now, most of them were considered war survivors, and most of them were either labeled as either being disoriented, wandering, and directionless. The next generation is from 1901 to 1927, and that is the greatest generation. The reason they call that the greatest generation is because those Americans grew up during the Great Depression and fought in World War II, or whose labor helped win it. The next generation is the silent generation. Shh. Just like the silent generation term says, because children of that era from 1928 to 1945 were expected to be seen and not heard. That's kind of weird. Silent generation, seen but not heard. Kind of reminds me of that little monkey see, monkey do. No, not monkey see, monkey do. It's one of those hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. The little statue. Baby boomers. That's people from 1946 to 1964. And for me, being at age 49, that would mean those are my parents. They were born during the post-World War II, what they call baby boom. They rejected and redefined traditional values. They are also the wealthiest, most active, and have the most disposable income for food, apparel, and retirement programs. You probably heard them labeled as flower childs back in the day, but not all of them were, just most. Generation X. That is my generation, from 1965 to 1980. Members of this group are approaching the middle of their working careers and potential peak earning years. So what they're telling me just from hearing that information on the Pew Research Center is that I'm at the point where I should be making more income in another 5 years. Just say that, which is a good thing. Work smart, not hard. So as long as I'm not working too hard to get it, I'm happy. The next generation is Generation Y, millennials. Millennials are from 1981 to 1996. Millennials, I've always heard that term just like a millennial. That term's been it's been used exhaustingly, but they're trying to make a point about that, and I'm going to tell you why. Generation Y is the first generation in recorded history which is projected to be worse off than those which came before them. Think about that for a moment. 1981 to 1996. Okay. That speaks volumes. They're actually thought to be more family oriented and willing to sacrifice career advancement for a better work-life balance. That makes perfect sense. Now, most of the Generation Y, where I'm talking about, they actually are a portion of the iGen, which is the internet generation. So they actually coincide with Generation Z, which is from 1997 to 2012. They are called the Centennials. So you have millennials with Centennials. Now, for them, diversity is their norm. They are our first digital natives, meaning that when they were born, everything was digital. They are pragmatic and financially minded. Many factors contribute to their mental health challenges. That right there says a lot. Many factors contribute to their mental health challenges. This is the time when at that age you hear issues where someone that has ADHD, deficiencies in some type of supplement of vitamin like zinc, or those are the ones that we always have to help out and look out for because they have a lot of challenges. Sometimes the mental health challenge could be that emotionally they're being scarred at school. Hence, we have what they call the cyberbullying or the physical bullying, and then you end up having someone where the kid ends up doing something that's out of the ordinary, like going into a school with a firearm and just laying waste to people. Unfortunately, that's not a good thing. Generation Z is also shrewd consumers, so they're all about maximizing their dollar. They're politically progressive, even those on the right. Okay. Generation Alpha, that is from 2010 to 2020. I stopped at 20 and I'm gonna tell you why. They will be the most educated generation in history, Generation Alpha. Why? Because they're gonna be all tech savvy. AI will be their reality. Their learning is highly personalized. They don't play by the rules. They don't like the sharing economy. Social media will be their dominant mode of interaction, which is happening right now. Religion goes out the window. Now, unfortunately, because they're relying on the internet for their information and their contact and their interaction, that religion goes out the window. And it's not in a bad way, because in my opinion, I think that what happens is most of them will go online looking for religion or something that's being broadcast live online versus going into a school or a church and getting information that way. Now, 2021. This generation will be considered Generation C. Now you're wondering, Generation C, what does that stand for? It stands for the COVID generation. People that were born after COVID-19. That's what they're going to call it. Fortunately, that's the way it is. Now, the reason I brought that up is because we're going to talk about technology and how it rules the world, because right now the technology has improved and it's giving people information. It's made things automated. It's given people experiences that they've never had before. But there is a plus and minus to this. The plus is you're getting information worldwide without having to look for it too hard. The bad part is it takes away from social interaction, because when you don't go outside, you're glued to the internet, looking at your laptop, your iPad, the television, social media, using it to communicate. As a result, you never experience life outside of the doors of the house. I'm going to point out something as well. YouTube has emerged as a key platform for younger and older kids, which we all knew that. Fully 89% of parents of a child aged 5 to 11 say their child watches videos on YouTube. 89% of the parents say that. 81% is saying that children from 3 to 4. 57% for children 2 or younger. People are using technology actually now to babysit. And I'm not talking about a robot. I'm talking about giving a kid an iPad, putting them in the crib, and letting them watch TV or play around with the iPad. That speaks volumes. Now, also, for the senior level, people that are 60 years of age and older are actually learning to adapt. And the reason I'm saying they're learning to adapt, because as time advances, to technology advances as well, and then the older generation starts to pick up the nuances of the basic fundamentals of technology. Now, people are wondering, okay, if they're picking up the technology, what are they picking up? Well, the best way I can explain it is this: that the amount of time that Americans age 60 and older spend on TVs, computers, tablets, or other electronic devices has risen almost half an hour per day over the past decade. This is from the Pew Research Center. Those that are 60 and older now spend more than half their daily leisure time, 4 hours and 16 minutes in front of the television. And the screen time has increased for those in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond. And the rise is apparent across genders and education levels. And when I say education levels, people with degrees, bachelor's degrees for adults. It's a known fact that it's just happening worldwide. And so with the increase in screen time, it actually helps the elderly understand the technology. They're not going to know all the intricacies on how every feature on their cell phone works, or how every feature on their iPad or tablet that they're using, or even the television. But they get the gist of it. So what happens is, a perfect example. When I was a technician, I used to go to customers' houses and install television and internet. And so when I went to a customer's house to do that, what happened was, when I got there, one of three things happened for the elderly when I went there. One person's house I went to, they wanted me to come back every time they had an issue. Every time. After about the third or fourth time, I got tired of doing it. Now, I'm not saying I didn't like doing it. I just got tired of it because it was an issue for the same exact thing that needed to be addressed earlier. Now, it was simply a remote control. They kept pushing a button at the top for an input. So what I did was I went to one of our managers and I said, can't we have a suggestion box, an idea on something to help the seniors? I said this, and he said, what do you think? I said, well, why not a remote control designed for the elderly? A big button remote control. After about 2 months, a big button remote control was issued that lights up and has basic buttons. And it has a lanyard on it to keep on their wrist. Novel idea. Next one, the other person that I installed it to, they changed their mind midway through the installation and said, you know what? I don't understand all this. Take it out. And I had to take it all out before I could finish. And then the last person, they just went ahead and had me install it. And they said, you know what? I'm not going to use some of those features anyway. I just want to learn two things: how to change the channel and where to do the power. That's all he wanted, and the volume. So that is an experience for a lifetime, because each one of those situations has happened to me many times in people's homes. I'm thinking about a time when I was actually in someone's house, an elderly couple. The miss let me in. I went inside and they wanted wireless cable boxes. So as I was setting one of them up, someone was standing behind me. I turned around and her husband was naked. Now, I was thrown off. A nurse came racing in there to grab him. He was asking me, what am I doing? Found out later on that he suffered from Alzheimer's, and he just wanted to know who I was and why I was there. That was an experience of a lifetime. I would never, every time I think about it, I laugh. I never told my boss about it because it was too embarrassing, because you got a guy standing behind me naked, butt naked, and he's standing behind me wanting to know what I was doing. That was interesting. Now, technology has come a long way, and it will continue to change and evolve. And there will be more simplistic ways of handling it, where people of an older age are able to use it. But the question is, do we have the patience to help them, to teach them? For some situations, yes. But for repetitive issues, maybe not. The question is, do you have the patience? Now, when I'm at a customer's home, every customer I've interacted with says, I've asked you this several times, and you seem to be the most patient person I've ever dealt with, because I know you're learning new technology and it's new to you, even though it's not to me. But after I've left your home and I've been there 2-3 times, okay, there's a problem. We need to fix this. So that way it doesn't happen again. With that being said, we need the younger generation to teach the elders on how to use this technology. So when you're at a parent's house and they're asking you a question about something, feel free to help them. I help my mom when she needs it. It's not going to hurt. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time out of your life, but the satisfaction knowing that you were able to teach someone something and they were able to retain that information makes you feel good inside. It lets you know that you taught them something that they didn't know and that you were able to articulate and explain it well. This is the Installer Guy signing off, episode 3. Don't let the technology rule you. You rule the technology.